Are you ready to create like Santa's watching? I believe Sonnet said it best in her thank you card, where the November Maker's Box is filled with such a timeless collection of old world Santas with nostalgic papers and rich holiday hues. Hi, I'm Sylvia with Backyard Brushes in Fountain City, Wisconsin, and it's my favorite time of month and it's my favorite holiday season. I know in January I'm going to be challenged to, clean out my garage. So in today's video, I thought I would get an early start by using items that I already had in my stash. So let's roll up our sleeves and let's get creating. For the November Maker's Box, we have Mary St. Nick and Winter Birch by Connie, the Painted Photographer. North Pole Plaids and Season's Greetings by Recycled Decoupage Paper. Fancy Farm Girl and White Swan DIY Paint, along with Ash and Parchment by Fusion Mineral Paint. For Sweet Pickins Milk Paint, we have one of my favorite colors, Basil. And Sonnet always includes a fun napkin and thank you card with inspiration and a QRC code to her new digital press. For project 1, I'm using this little wooden sled I picked up actually when I was in Appleton for Sonnet's retreat. I decided to cut off the twine that was on the sled using red, I think it's Marquee. It was actually in last month's box. I painted around the wooden seat of the sled. For the side of the seat, I used the Fancy Farm Girl by DIY. Once that was dry, I used Fusion Antiquing Gel and I went over all of the paint and then I wiped it off. And it it sealed the paint and it also gave it kind of a vintage vibe. It darkened it up. Using the DIY White Swan, I painted the top part of the sled seat. I fussy cut the Mary St. Nick from the Painted Photographer, one of the smaller ones. And using DIY liquid patina, I put a layer of the liquid patina as my decoupage medium over the seat of the sled. And I placed our St. Nick right on top of the seat of the sled. I also used my fingers to smooth it out, and I did mist the paper before applying it to the seat. When using rice paper, it does give you a little bit more time to move around and manipulate the paper and placement than when using the decoupage papers. I then sealed the seat, that's a mouthful, with DIY liquid patina. I used a finger sander just to go around the edges of the seat of the sled. I made sure to go in an up and down motion as not to rip the paper. Then I felt like something was missing. It was just too red. So using the White Swan, I covered, I don't know if that's called the handle, the top part of the sled. And I did go around the edges with the Fancy Farm Girl. Using the liquid patina, again for my decoupage medium, I used a piece of the rice paper from the largest Santa to cover the top part of the sled. I sealed it with the liquid patina, and using the same method as before, I used the finger sander to go up and down all the way around the edges of the decoupage paper or the rice paper. And then I was able to just peel that paper right off, and I had a nice smooth line or edging. For project 2, I'm using a paint can that I have in my garage. I actually have quite a few of these that I just can't seem to throw away. And using the razor knife, I just cut off the label, and I used hand sanitizer and actually alcohol to clean off the glue that was underneath the label. Using the Sweet Pickens Basil Milk Paint, I mixed up a batch of paint, 1 part powder to 1 part warm water, and then I just stirred it up really well, and I let it sit for like 10 or 15 minutes while the pigments mix with the water. And it does thicken up a little bit as it sits. And you do want it to be like the consistency of like a partially melted milkshake. I gave the paint container 2 coats of the Basil Sweet Pickens milk paint. I did not apply heat. I printed out one of the digital downloads and cut out one of the smaller Santas, and cardinals sell really well for me, so it was an easy pick which picture to use. And I used the water tear method and ripped out or around the Santa. I like the uneven edges for more of that vintage feel versus a straight, perfect cut. I used the DIY white swan underneath the print so I knew where the print would be placed on the can, and I gave 1 coat of the DIY white swan for under the rice paper. Using DIY liquid patina as my decoupage medium, I adhered the digital press right onto the can, and I sealed it with DIY liquid patina. Using DIY dark wax, I ran around the edges of the paper, and then I just made my way around the whole can. This seals the Sweet Pickens milk paint, and it also gives it a little bit darker of that vintage vibe again. I added some florals, a little cardinal, and my project was done. For project 3, I'm using a galvanized tray I picked up at a garage sale this summer, and I'm sealing it with Salvation Solution by DIY First for the paint to have something to adhere to, and using the Basil Sweet Pickens milk paint I'd previously mixed. I gave the tray 2 coats of paint, and on the second coat I did use a heat gun, And I also made sure to do the bottom of the tray. Once the paint was dry, I used DIY crinoline and I painted the center of the tray. Using a hand sanding sponge, I just went around the edges and the sides to take off a little bit of that paint so it looked worn and you could see some of the galvanized metal. I placed the tray on top of the rice paper and went around with a wet paintbrush. Then I just tore the edges or the circle out from my wet edges. Again, using DIY liquid patina as my decoupage medium, I painted half the tray. I misted the rice paper. It kind of helps loosen up those fibers for easier placement and less wrinkles. And I placed the paper right into the center of the tray. And I did leave my edges rough and ragged and torn. I just feel like it goes more with that vintage vibe. And I just kind of carefully placed my paper and used my fingers to spread it out and kind of like tried my best to minimize the wrinkling. Once I had my paper in place, I was able to apply the liquid patina decoupage medium to the bottom half of the tray. And again, I used my fingers to smooth out the paper and minimize wrinkling. I chose to seal the paint with DIY dark wax, and I just made my way around the inside of the tray using a paper towel to wipe out the excess wax. And I also did the outside side of the tray and again the bottom of the tray to give the project a completed feel. Project 4 is inspired by my coworker Brooke, who actually sent me a TikTok video and was like, "Do you think you'd ever try something like that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, how about right now?" I actually have a really cool napkin for Sonnet's box. I have the clear plates in my stash from decoupaging my grandkids' pictures for a Mother's Day present. So I gave it a shot. I cut out one of the Santas from the napkin. I use liquid patina on my fingers to remove the excess layers of napkins. You just want that top layer. So I just pinch the corner and it peels apart. Using the liquid patina as my decoupage medium, I placed my Santa where I kind of wanted him. I went around with the wet brush method to tear a circle. I applied the DIY liquid patina to the back of the plate in a nice even coat. I directly placed my Santa napkin right into the center of the plate, and I do not mist the napkins like I do the rice paper and the decoupage paper. I used the finger sander, went around the edges, and took off the excess napkin. I then sealed the back of the napkin. Using DIY White Swan, I painted the back of the napkin so that it would have that white, bright base underneath that would help make the Santa pop out more. Using Fancy Farm Girl by DIY, I painted the back edging of the plate. And it did take 2 coats. I decided it needed a little something something. So I grabbed the winter foil transfers from IOD's last year's holiday release, and I picked out a couple pine cones. I thought it kind of matched the back of the Santa paper. And I just lightly rubbed the foil transfer onto the edges of the paper. And you do have to go rather gently with the foil, as you don't want to wreck the metallic foil portion of the transfer, but they do apply really easily. I just go slow and light-handed. I did seal the top part of the plate with Big Top by DIY, just so that the transfer was sealed onto the plate. I then used the DIY Big Top to seal the Fancy Farm Girl White Swan paint. I'm using Fusion Gilding Wax, and I'm going around the edges of the plate and the center part of the plate to frame it with some gold. I would love to know which one of these projects was your favorite and if you found any inspiration to try one on your own. If you're interested in receiving Sonnet's Maker's Box, I can leave a link below in the description box so you can bypass the waiting list and start receiving your box next month. If you found this video inspirational, please hit subscribe below and follow me along on my creative journey. Thank you.